Hey everyone, welcome to my channel all about cross stitch. My name is Jessica and I am here to talk about Needlework Marketplace again. Needlework Marketplace is an online wholesale trade show for the cross stitch industry. It's my first time attending, or it was my first time attending. I have a couple of videos on my channel about like the lead up, the preparation for Marketplace. This video is going to be a recap of my experience and kind of how the event itself went and some of my stats for like how many patterns I sold, that sort of stuff. So I'm going to be getting into all of that. I'm trying my best to organize my thoughts on the process, like on the whole experience. So I might end up filming this in multiple segments, but I'm going to put it all in one video. But yeah, it feels like a lot. So I think I just need to get started. So first off, I'm going to start with talking about the virtual booth situation. When I read the website, the Needlework Marketplace website, they mentioned this virtual booth. And in my mind, I thought it was going to be something where I am like sitting at my desk, and I guess when people want to come into my booth or like call me, I'll be there and be able to like show the models or something. I don't know what I was thinking. I thought it was like a more hands-on, like I gotta be present the whole time, and similar to what I've heard about or seen with Nashville. I don't know the whole name, but Nashville Trade Show, which is an in-person event, you know, like a designer is sitting in the room with all their models and that sort of stuff. But it's not like that at this online event. You make your virtual booth ahead of time. And I have some little pictures that I'll insert, maybe a video clip, I think, possibly a video clip of the templates that you have. I personally think it was kind of funny. They had these avatars sitting behind these booths. It was very corporate looking. The program or the software being used for the event is called vFairs. And I don't know how many options there are for virtual trade shows like this, but there's some issues with that platform. Not a very well optimized software. So it was a little bit frustrating dealing with vFairs in particular and just setting up that booth. But yes, you can see hopefully some little examples of the templates, and it's basically a static image that you are then inserting in your own images, whatever you wanted to display for this virtual trade show haul. But I also took, I think, a clip of what my the end result of my booth, so I'll insert that here. Here's where I ended up with my booth. Unfortunately, they did let you remove the avatars from a lot of the layouts I checked in. But yeah, the customization options beyond that were very limited. They let me pick two colors here. We got the green and the teal. And then, of course, I added all my images in. I kept it just very bright. I zoomed in on a lot of my pieces because it's just too small of a space to like show off the whole piece in some case. So I put my exclusives, and then I included cherry magpie because I thought it looked fun to have them like facing each other on both sides of the booth. And yeah, it kind of looks like a face. There's like two eyes, and then this like screaming mouth and ears on either side, but it's okay. I like it. Still have to do the description, which I've heard is a pain from my designer group. But I think I'm going to deal with that another day. I had a little bit of fun making it, and it ended up being much better than I expected it to be. I do quite like the look of my end booth, and I thought it was fun. I will say some tips or info for people who decide to do Needlework Marketplace for the first time and are watching this video. Yes, it is frustrating setting up the booth. Make sure you pay attention to the numbers. It has a note about this too on the website. It like numbers the images, and you have to add them in to your booth, like upload them on the website in the order it gives, or it will rearrange things later or just it just deletes it randomly as well. Like that has happened as well, where like you come back to look at your booth again and the whole booth is gone and you have to redo it. So make sure you're saving your images like in an easily accessible folder so that it's easy to go back and find whatever images you put in there, stuff like that. Also, the image resolution for this entire platform, both the booth and the shop that you end up creating where needlework shops will peruse your items, the image resolution is awful. But it's awful for everyone, so it's not like you're the only one with awful image resolution. But I did find that it was better to resize and crop my images in Photoshop or probably in any photo editing software, whatever you use. Resize the images. It gives you the dimensions. I would resize them ahead of time and not use their in-platform tools, because they do have tools where you can like zoom in and crop things. I did that the first time, and someone in my designer group suggested trying like the Photoshop route for resizing and cropping stuff, and that did make a noticeable difference in how sharp the images were. I ended up saving those files as JPEGs, and I did for sure do at least 300 dpi for the resolution. And I think that really helped out on the clarity of the images, because they were looking really, really dicey and blurry. And I'm like, this does not represent me very well, but what can you do? It's just the platform. Okay, so that was a little talk about the booths, the fun experience of creating a virtual booth. And from what I hear, that info, like the booth, isn't saved to the next year. Like none of your info gets saved, your shop info, like all the images you have to put in, the product listings, because that is another aspect of this process, is creating all the listings for the patterns that you want to be available through Marketplace. And from what I can tell, most people like to include a pretty full catalog. So it gets kind of tedious having to add in, create new listings for everything. But, it's a lot of copy and pasting from my website, so it wasn't too bad, especially since I only have like 20 patterns. But I can see it becoming a real pain if you're a more established designer, have a lot of patterns. But I think by that point, I probably wouldn't bother adding everything in, because it's just not worth it, right? Another thing about the lead up to the event that I wanted to mention was the communication. I felt that it was a little bit lacking. I personally am not on Facebook. From what I can gather, there's a lot of info being shared on Facebook regarding Needlework Marketplace. I had to reach out to the event organizer at some point because I wasn't getting a response from my emails. This was shortly after signing up, and I wasn't sure if my payment went through or something was wrong, because I didn't see, any change in the website and my logo appearing, stuff like that. So I did reach out and asked all my questions, and the event organizer is super nice. Nothing against Bobby. She's a very, very nice lady. But she doesn't seem to keep up on emails from what I gather. And she did answer all my questions. That was great. She did mention like, hey, are you on Facebook? Presumably because that info was on the Facebook page. And I said I wasn't. And I asked if that would be a problem, like if I'm going to be in the dark. She's like, no, you'll get emails. Well, I got some of the emails. I didn't get all the emails. So there was an email sent out for the vendor or the shop list. About a month before the event, there is a spreadsheet that goes out, and it has all of the names of the shops that have signed up for Needlework Marketplace. And people who have purchased booths at the event can use this list just for the purpose of sending out an email showcasing your products that you're going to be selling at Marketplace. I know a lot of people use it to initiate pre-orders, which is what I did. And so I did receive the main list that had most of the shops on there, but there were some shops that signed up after that list was sent. And that second list that had maybe 60 shops on it, That one was only posted to Facebook, but fortunately I was able to receive it and know about it because some of my designer friends on Discord posted that to the Discord. So just know that if you're going into that and you're not on Facebook, it can get a little dicey with regards to receiving information about the event. I will say that the tutorials that Bobby sent out were really helpful for navigating the platform. It would have been, given the platform and how many issues there are already, it would have been even worse not having that info in the tutorial videos, because there were some like things that weren't intuitive about the platform, but Bobby did clarify in the videos about certain things that, you know, people have probably had questions about in the past. So I did find the tutorials very helpful. So I think that is all of the info regarding the marketplace leading up to the event that I have to share. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with pre-orders and that stuff now. I do have this like big printer saga that kind of happened throughout the pre-order period and the marketplace event. I'm going to try and condense that right now and just say, like, go through it briefly and explain my reasoning for purchasing multiple printers and what I was looking for and that sort of stuff, because my setup has changed a lot since the last video I posted in my preparation phase. So long story short, I now have, or at one point I had 3 printers going. The first and oldest printer is now dead, like Marketplace destroyed it. And so that one is out of the picture. I now am down to 2. They are working great now. That's like the short of it all, but a little bit more detail on it. So I will first put a little, maybe down here, the different model numbers of the 3 printers I'm going to be talking about. I don't want to get them mixed up, and they're all Epson branded. They're all Eco Tanks. So the only differentiating factor is the numbers, and I don't think I can keep them straight. So I'll put those here. I'll also put in parentheses my names for them, because that's what I call them, and I might call them during this whole thing, because it makes it easier to talk about. My oldest one is Tasha, been with me for about 5 years. I bought it in COVID. I bought it at the very beginning of COVID. So that one has served me well. Now is gone, but I really appreciated all the labor it did a good job. I have no problems. It's not even a model for sale anymore, I found, because I did see if I could buy the same model at some point in the pre-order phase, because I didn't want any changes in print quality, but it's not a model that's for sale anymore. The first printer I purchased is Brick, and then the second printer I purchased is Elizabeth, and that's the fanciest one. My daughter named that one, and she thinks Elizabeth is just the fanciest name. So we got Tasha, Brick, and Elizabeth. Okay, so leading up to the event, I did do pre-orders, and that helped a lot with managing the workload. I was able to start printing stuff like a couple weeks before Marketplace actually occurred. I wish I started a little bit earlier, but I was getting, I don't know, I was worried that the patterns had errors in them, which I've never put out a pattern with an error. I've never had that issue, not to say that it won't happen at some point. But I think because in the past, all of my patterns have come out digitally first, there's that security of knowing that, well, if there's any issues, you can just fix it and resend the PDF. It's not ideal, but it's better than with a print copy where you're having to try and get the information out about an error in the chart that some people might not see, that sort of thing. So I was worried about errors. So I was, I had the PDFs ready for print, but I would just wait a day and check on them again, and then wait a day, check again, because I just wanted to be sure there weren't any issues with them. So it did delay starting the printing process, but the pre-order phase went pretty smoothly. I had some supply issues with some of the printer parts, like maintenance boxes I ran out of at one point. Didn't think I would go through them as quickly as I did. And I also, with Tasha, she started not being able to handle the 100-pound cover copy cardstock that I use for my instruction pages. So I had to switch it to an 80-pound cardstock. I think it was just the little springs and mechanism for pulling up the paper was just getting old. It didn't look dirty or anything like that. So I'm now using an 80-pound paper for the instruction sheet, same brand, Hammermill. I find that works really well still, even though it's not as thick of a paper. So yes, pre-orders went fine. The week leading up, though, the printer started to noticeably slow down in its printing, especially with the pattern pages, which are mostly black and white and used to go they used to spit out pretty fast because they weren't photos. But even those were taking it was too long. It was just taking too long. They were starting to reach the level of time a photo page would take to come through. So I was starting to think that this printer might not manage the load, but I was being stubborn about it and didn't want to, create any more issues for myself. What if a new printer doesn't work the same way and changes the quality of the print? Or, what if there's issues with the new printer? So I was just being stubborn and I did not even look at new printers or other options until Friday, which was the first day of Marketplace. And by the end of the day, with the orders I received, I was like, there's no way. I will be printing into October if I don't do something different than what I'm doing right now. So I researched printers, came up with the Brick, the bigger one. I purchased that one because it's a high capacity printer. It's more like business printing. It does do color though, because I need color for both the instruction pages and sometimes in my patterns there will be color. So I purchased this printer with the intent of using it just for the pattern pages and instructions, and it works. It's great. It's great. It can feed cardstock too, from this top slot. And it has huge, trays in there. It's perfect. So it's perfect for that purpose. And the quality, I would say, isn't for the instruction pages I'm thinking in particular. I do occasionally notice the tiniest little bands in the color part of my color keys, but it's fine. It goes so fast. And it just saved me. It's definitely saved me in this whole Marketplace printing business. One thing about printers is you're always going to have problems with it eventually. You have to be ready to deal with that inevitability. I was hoping that my old printer could last me through Marketplace, but it didn't. I will say that the two new printers, I never had any issues in Marketplace at all, and there's still no issues. So for now, they're doing great. But then, the old printer, Tasha, she started having, I think on Saturday, cyan just stopped printing well. It was looking very splotchy and no banding, which was weird. I've never seen this issue, but it was just these weird areas of desaturation when cyan was heavily used. So I could still use it for cover pages that were very warm tone, but my best-selling pattern and a lot of my well-selling patterns, they had the cyan heavily used in it. So I had to do something. I went and picked up Elizabeth, and I had already researched that printer. I knew that was the printer I was going to replace or use to replace for photo printing. I like this printer because, first of all, it goes so much faster than Tasha. It's just I had them both printing at one point, and Tasha could print out one page in the time that Elizabeth did 10. That's insane difference. The quality of the print is definitely better on the newer photo printer. The standard print quality is the same as the high print quality of my old printer. So that's why it can go so much faster, but still give me good print quality without any banding. I've been super happy with it. And that did what I needed to do. The two new printers got me through the rest of Marketplace, and I'm still using them now. I think the biggest thing going forward is I need to make sure that I am printing something on them every week at least. With inkjet printers, like things can dry out and like print heads will clog. With these, there's like the tubes that are running from your ink wells to the like print heads as well. You don't want the ink drying up in there. I don't know if that's even an issue, but definitely with the nozzles on the print heads, those can get dried out if you don't print regularly. So I'm gonna try and just keep it at least once a week running some prints through it. And I think that it's gonna, hopefully that setup will last me for a while. Thankfully, my marketplace was successful enough that I was able to purchase these printers with the funds that I was getting from my sales at Marketplace, and it's a nice investment in my business in the future. So I'm really happy with those two printers. I will say the brick, the first printer I purchased, the big one, the one I purchased has like fax capabilities. I think there's a model without fax capabilities. I don't know if the price is different, but one of my limitations was I needed to find printers in stock in my local area so I could go and print it up, like pick it up same day. So both of them, I was just like, the first one I was like researching at 1 a.m. and then I had my husband pick it up the next morning. And then I just like, on the second one, it was just, okay, I'm having issues, bye, go pick up. Like it was immediate. So that was really nice. So that's the end of my little printer saga. Yeah, that's, it happened. It's over. It was not, I don't even want to say it's stressful. This experience, Marketplace overall, has felt a lot to me like my experience with Kickstarters, where, it's just really intense, a lot of excitement and stress and like endorphins, and you're just like got all this adrenaline going because there's so much happening. And that it's just like you get through it, and then afterwards you kind of have that crash. It took me a couple of weeks to get through that crash, but yeah, I still feel like the stress of managing these printers is better for me than the stress of dealing with a manufacturer and any issues that arise with manufacturing, because I can at least control the printer situation and know exactly what's happening. Even if things come up that you don't expect, it's still, for me, from what I've experienced with manufacturers and all that juggling in the past, I prefer this to sending out my stuff to a printer that does it for me. I might in the future look into that, at least for some components of the pattern, but for now I'm happy with what I have going on and the setup I have, and we'll see how it goes. Let's take a look at the Marketplace haul now. Here I took some little video clips of what it looks like. It reminded me a lot of being in like some sort of Sims game. It's a video game if you're not familiar, but I felt like I was in like business expansion Sims. Just a lot of little avatars walking around on the main page, and then there's like, I don't know what it was called, but a separate little area where there's also like lots of people, avatars walking around. It's kind of strange. There's one little cat on the main page under the stairs that's just like clearly not rendered correctly, because it's just like a black silhouette that doesn't move. And I think there's also a dog, but that was my favorite, the little cat there. So yeah, that's what the haul looks like when you enter the page. Then there's little tabs up top where anyone can click and see a list of all the vendors, all the booths. It's by alphabetical order. The booths are listed alphabetical order, like in pages. And it just shows a little image of your booth in this big sea of other booths. People can then click on the booths, and the shops can place orders directly through Marketplace. Now, when they place an order through Marketplace, it's convenient, I think, for the shops, because when they're shopping Marketplace, they can add all these things to the cart, see a total before checking out, as opposed to individually placing orders and maybe not knowing exactly what they're really spending overall. I don't know. I guess you can make decisions and cuts later on if you're like, oh, that's too much, sort of thing. But when a shop does place an order, each vendor, each booth, you'll get an email and it says what products they purchased or want to purchase, and then you have to invoice them That was an issue for me initially. I was invoicing everyone through QuickBooks, which meant a lot of like copy pasting of addresses manually. And then when I went to go ship the order, I would have to do it again. I learned later on that you could invoice directly through Shopify, which is the website platform I use for hosting my wholesale pattern shop. I did not know you could do that. And that, like, when I learned that you could invoice directly through Shopify, that really solved a lot of my like data management, and I didn't have to keep as many like spreadsheets and notes about like who I sent, and like it was very confusing before learning that. So I did eventually invoice through Shopify. That way it kept everything organized for me, and then it imports directly into my shipping software that I use, so I didn't have to do as much manual entry of addresses. But yeah, you're having to, throughout the weekend, like basically what I was doing was sitting at my computer. I wasn't really interacting with many shops or anything. I talked to, over the phone, two different shops or other people at the event. But I was there the whole time managing email, staying on top of my printer, making sure things were going smoothly, packing orders, packing patterns into their sleeves, like doing all of that stuff throughout the entire event. So that's kind of what my weekend looked like for those either 3 or 4 days. I can't remember if Monday was officially Marketplace or not. The event, like the halls didn't really shut down at the end of Marketplace. They were just left open. So I did receive few orders after Marketplace was officially over, but that's fine. An order is an order. I was able to get all of my pre-order patterns out, I think by Saturday. So that was great. My goal was to start shipping patterns on Friday. Friday, I believe, was the first day that you could ship patterns purchased through like this Marketplace event. I couldn't find it anywhere after the fact, but in my head, I just remember that you're not supposed to send out like pre-orders before the official event starts. Like that's what I have in my head. I don't know if that is true or not, but that is what I operated under, where pre-orders started shipping on Friday, the first day of Marketplace. I was able to finish up pre-orders by Saturday morning and then started working on the orders that I was receiving on Friday. I was able to get through everything by, I think the last one went out on Thursday. So that was pretty good. That's pretty good. And there were a lot. I received way more orders than I expected. Maybe I'll just get into that now. I don't think there's anything. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to say about the actual event. Let's go ahead and get into the stats. Then I'm going to start off by saying that I am not sharing this info in order to invite comparison. I said I would share it, first of all, and I also think it's just helpful. Any numbers are helpful when you're going into this event. It's so much easier to go into an event knowing what other people have experienced in the past. This was my first event. I had some like very few data points, and the more data points you can have, I feel like the easier it is to approach an event like this. So I'm going to share my numbers. I'm going to talk mostly in percentages, but I will give the total number of patterns I sold, which was this right here. Let me look it up. It's okay, let's see. I have a spreadsheet, so I just didn't have it pulled up. Okay. So in total, I sold 2,396 patterns, which if you recall from my previous video on preparation for this event, I had made maybe like 400 patterns. Like that's what I was thinking. I'm like, I'm going to sell reasonably 400 patterns, which I did. It was very reasonable for me to expect 400 patterns to be sold. I sold way more than I could have ever anticipated. And I'm very grateful to all the shops, all customers, everyone, stitchers who purchased one of my patterns. Thank you so much. It's a very successful first event for me, and it's really motivating and made me feel like I can keep pursuing this now that, I'm shutting down my enamel pin shop, transition more to cross stitch as like a full-time thing, full-time, part-time thing. So I do consider myself like a stay-at-home mom part-time, because my hours aren't really full-time for my art business. But anyway, yes, 2,396. I did end up having to like purchase more materials because I only purchased enough for roughly 1,200 patterns. So I pretty early on like purchased that, didn't have any issues getting it in time. So with my pre-orders, only 25% of my orders, total orders, came during my pre-order phase. So that means that 75% of the shops that purchased from me purchased at Marketplace itself. I don't know if that will change in the future now that it's not going to be my first time anymore. Maybe because it was my first time, shops didn't really know I existed, didn't really care to do the pre-orders with me, that sort of stuff. I'm not sure. But yes, 25% of my orders came during the pre-order phase. But of all of the patterns sold, 46% of the patterns were sold in the pre-order phase. So even though there were much fewer orders, the orders were higher in quantities of patterns included. Now, I did not have a minimum order quantity for this marketplace. I might in the future. I did have maybe 2 orders, maybe 2, that had only one pattern in. It's kind of obvious that it's more for personal stitching, which I don't know. I don't really take much issue with, but if you wanted to prevent that, you could do a minimum pattern quantity, which a lot of designers do. I also set my free shipping threshold pretty low. I put it at $50, which I didn't see anyone. I didn't see anyone else doing a pre-order or a free shipping threshold that low. I think it was a little lower than I'm comfortable with. I'm going to raise that for next time, or probably before next time even. For patterns, I think $50 is a little bit low for covering all the expenses needed to get these patterns produced and then paying for the shipping on top of that. So I'm going to raise that probably to $75, but for now I had the free shipping threshold of $50, and I wanted to see if people would try and reach that value or if there were some people who just didn't care to reach it. And from my stats, only 63% of the orders met my free shipping minimum. I expected it to be more because $50 is not that high, but yeah, only 63% of shops. What else? Oh, a thing that I wanted to mention with pre-orders and sending out the email, it's kind of odd sending out that initial email because you're like, oh, I finally sent it. Now I'm going to get orders, but you're not going to get orders. People will not place orders right away because you got to think about the fact that a lot of shops are, after they get your info, are then maybe listing your patterns on their own shops or reaching out to their own customers and seeing how much interest there is in certain patterns. So you won't be getting orders, and you'll feel like maybe a failure if you don't know that you're not expected to get orders at this period of time. When I first sent out my newsletter, within the first 24 hours, I received 1 pre-order. So there was 1 person that placed it in the first 24 hours. Within the first week of sending my newsletter, I had 3 pre-orders placed. Not a lot. It was not a lot. Overall, I had 83, but I had 83 orders overall. So that's a very small percentage placed within that first week. Okay, so yes, my pre-order deadline was August 18th, which was the Monday before Marketplace. So that was a roughly 3-week pre-order period. I tried to make it as long as possible, but still give myself time to manage to print all the pre-orders before Marketplace. But yeah, overall, average order quantity, like the average number of patterns per order, was 29 for me, and the median, so kind of taking into account that there were some outliers, some shops that placed a lot larger order than most shops, but the median order quantity was only 12. Another interesting stat that I think is helpful is the percentages of how people place their orders. For me, there was 3 ways to place an order. The first being through my website. That would be my preference, honestly, because it's less work for me. I don't have to create an invoice separately. Some people placed orders through email, and then the third way, of course, was through Marketplace itself, and then I would send out an invoice after. So 27% of my orders came through my website. 16% came through email, and then of course that remaining 58% came through the Marketplace platform itself. International versus domestic. So I'm in the United States. I did the free shipping within the United States. For international orders, I don't offer any sort of discount right now, but also with this event, it's kind of cool that international shops have this option where shops they purchase from can send their products to Bobby, the event organizer, and their shop will repackage everything, separate out the international orders, and then send one international shipment to the shop that is ordered through Marketplace. Sorry, my cat's being loud over there. So all the international shops that I received orders from chose to go this route. And you end up just packaging everybody's stuff within a box. In my case, it was a couple boxes because I did not have large box sizes. That was another little oops, next time, larger box sizes. But yeah, so I packaged all the international orders into just a couple boxes, sent those over to Bobby, and then they'll get resorted and sent off to the shops that ordered. But with this event, 87% of my orders came from shops within the United States, and then the remainder from international shops. I didn't calculate the percent of patterns, but I would say overall, the international shops were they were actually kind of above average in the number of patterns they were purchasing from me. They definitely, most of them meet that median number, that 12 pattern median, and a lot of them were even higher than the average pattern order size that I received. The smallest order I received was 1, like I said. Largest order was over 400 patterns. I did not know how to ship these orders. I did not, it's a lot, it's hefty. You're sending out these stacks of hundreds of patterns. And I was really worried about them not surviving the shipping process. For packaging, I had purchased ahead of time, boxes with 3-inch depth, 4-inch depth. I had some book sleeve. I'm not sure what they're called, but they're foldable cardboard things for sending books, which I do not like. I hate them, but there's not really any other options for 1 to 2-inch depth. And then I also had rigid mailers, envelopes. I used way more of the rigid mailers than I expected. And I wish I had purchased boxes that had a bigger depth to them, 6 inches would have been nice, because there were quite a few orders that were too large for the 4-inch box, so I had to split it into 2 shipments. But I think a 6-inch box would have been perfect. I did end up saving some boxes that were larger in their height for some of the larger orders, and I ordered more boxes, but they did not come in time. So I was kind of working with what I had, splitting the orders up when I needed to. I don't think overall the shipping was too much higher having to split the orders because, with more weight, you're just having to pay more in shipping anyway. But I probably, lost out on some money having to pay for more shipping overall than I would have if I shipped them in just single boxes. I know you can also combine boxes, like tape them up and like strap them together, but I didn't want to worry about those not surviving the trip, right? Okay, so I think that's all with regards to stats. That's all I really have. I think that's the most helpful information from what I gathered. I'm hoping like next year that's going to help me prepare a little bit better. I did have one pattern that outsold the rest. Almost every order had Blueberry J in it. I think there was maybe one order that I can recall where I was just like, oh my God, that's so weird. There's no Blueberry J in it. What's happening? Did they see it? Did they miss it? No. There was, one order that I can remember that did not have Blueberry J. So that one pattern, I think, lifts up all the other patterns if you think about it. So having that one standout is very helpful. And I knew going into this that Blueberry J was going to be the most popular pattern. I had the feeling, at least, because just based on my social media posts, that seemed to be the one that everyone was talking about, commenting on. I knew that Cherry Magpie was very popular, very viral pattern for me. So adding to that series, I think that's a kind of a good idea as a beginner designer in particular, kind of capitalizing on the popularity of previous patterns you had, assuming that you're interested in doing it. I'm not saying like, if you don't want to do it, just do it anyway for the money. No, like I wanted to design another pattern and it just didn't cross. Like once I had the idea given to me actually by Steph, Lindy Stitches, saying like, oh, if you have well-selling patterns, why don't you think about, creating one that's similar but different? I don't know. It just didn't cross my mind. So I designed that pattern hoping that it would do kind of similarly to Cherry Magpie do well. And it did. And I'm very thankful for that. Very happy that everyone is enjoying that pattern and likes that pattern. Let me see here. Okay, so roughly half of the patterns sold were the Blueberry J. Another interesting thing was that my smallest pattern, which I expected to be the poorest selling one from my digital experience, was actually, the smallest pattern was not the least popular pattern of my new releases. That was Green Bungalow. And it actually sold the second highest of my new releases. The two lowest selling ones were Linoleum Rug and Ephemeral Sampler. And I found that interesting because those two patterns are on the most neutral of fabrics of all of my new offerings. Like Blueberry J has the boldest fabric, and then both Green Bungalow is also a fairly bold fabric on that. Muted Sedona, and then Circle Dot is still kind of a dark fabric. But then the two lightest fabrics, the most neutral, were my least popular patterns of the Marketplace exclusives. It could totally just be the actual design itself, but I don't know. Could be something to do with the fabric as well. During this event, I was selling my full catalog, or my full physical catalog, and I did get a lot of sales just on my older patterns as well. I think because I was my first Marketplace. Cherry Magpie did really well. Still did better than a lot of the exclusives, which is interesting. And yeah, I don't know. Every pattern that I had in my catalog, at least one copy of it sold. So, which I guess is something to keep in mind if you're printing from, if you're like ordering patterns from a print shop, like maybe it's not worth it to put some of your older patterns up if they're not going to be selling well enough to justify, a print run. Because there were a couple patterns, like some of my earlier patterns have never sold well. But yeah, they still, some of them sold. I only sold one copy of Bramble Bun, for instance. It's the only physical copy of Bramble Bun out there. So it's one of one right now. Actually, the other one is sitting in my office because I have to print 2 at a time because it's one of the half-page ones. That's kind of funny. I almost wanted to sign it and be like, you have the first copy, but I just didn't want to be too weird about it. But that's all I have. I think those are all my stats. I hope that helps out anyone who is going to be doing Marketplace for the first time. Compared to my digital sales, this was like for releasing a pattern, I sold many more patterns at this event than I would normally sell releasing the pattern digitally initially. So I think it's definitely worth it. Definitely worth giving it a shot. It's helped me, I think, establish a lot of relationships with needlework shops around the United States and internationally. I like that it gave international shops the option to more economically purchase my patterns because shipping does get really expensive sending packages out. So that consolidation feature is really nice. I'm hoping that all these shops that purchase from me, I'm going to keep them in mind, maybe send them an email, ask if they mind being added to my newsletter in the future so that I can, when I am releasing new physical patterns, I'll have that information, have that newsletter database of shops that I can send out new info to. So that's really cool. I think that alone was probably one of the best reasons to consider doing Marketplace for the first time. It's just being able to get your patterns in front of a lot of people, establish some new relationships. I fortunately made up my booth fee very easily. I was able to invest in some new printers as well, some new equipment. So overall, very successful for me. I do think that having my social media presence already established was a big help. Like this YouTube channel has helped grow my business. I started out with Instagram and trying to build a following there as well. I think all of those factors helped contribute to having a really successful marketplace. Having a big library for people to shop from, customers to shop from, is also helpful. It helps with meeting those minimum free shipping thresholds, because maybe they are a small shop and they don't need like 10 patterns of the same design. They can't realistically sell that many. So having all those variety lets them choose some different options, and maybe they're only purchasing like one of each, but that's what works for their shop. And I will say, like, going back to that minimum pattern quantity, I don't think 5 is too large, but I don't think I would consider going much higher than that for a minimum, because like what I've seen, there are a lot more needlework shops out there than I even really envisioned or thought about. And I think a lot of them are just like smaller shops that maybe they're not able to house and like have space for a lot of different things. So they're very limited in what they purchase. I think that's the case for a lot of the smaller orders I received. But I think I'm going to sign off for now. I hope that was, like I said, helpful to newcomers. And for anyone who's not a designer or considering going to Marketplace, I hope that was just a fun little insight into the event and what it's like being a designer for your first Marketplace. I will be posting more vlogs. I'm already in the middle of filming another vlog that goes more into my like pattern making, design process, more back to that sort of stuff. So I'm excited to get back into more of the like creative aspect of this business for sure. But thank you all for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.